This is episode number 45 with Cooper Ferrer. Welcome to your Inside Track to Success. I'm your host, Stuart Cranes, and we are here each and every week to support you in creating the life of your dreams. Each week, we have a guest or a message designed to support you in up-leveling your life, your dreams, and giving you the tools necessary to support you in getting there. Let's start the show. Welcome back to the show, Cooper. It's great to have you back on.
Thank you very much for the invitation, Stuart. Very glad to be here.
Awesome, man. And I know that you guys are well into the season. For those of you that are listening and missed this, Cooper is the senior premium sales manager for the Orlando Magic. He was on an episode with us a couple of months ago, and his episode was so well received. I knew we had to have him back on. And I know that we're at that time of year where people are thinking about goals or thinking about resolutions, wanting to flip the script, flip the page on, that chapter of their lives. And, you're in a world where you're thinking about goals and everything each and every day, sales goals, metrics for the team, metrics for the organization that you work for. And you're also in a unique position where you're also training people up at the same time so that they can be the best versions of themselves in the workplace. And I guess I would love to hear from somebody who clearly has had a lot of success hitting goals, hitting metrics. What is your approach to reaching a goal, and what has worked for you, and how can the listeners implement it for themselves?
Yeah, absolutely. And happy to be back for round two. So thank you very much and appreciate your audience and your listeners. And I'm excited to see what 2024 has for everybody.
Yes, sir.
As far as goals, clearly make this into two different buckets. You have your career goals, which for me specifically is going to relate to our sales goals, sales numbers, just like any sales department would have. But then also you have your personal and life goals. And starting from a career perspective, I think one intelligent way to go about it is obviously you have to, I guess they'll say, eat the elephant one bite at a time, as they say, where, you're always going to have this overarching number that you need to accomplish. But the only way to get there is to break it up by segments, by pieces, step by step. For us, our sales cycle is determined by the NBA season. So obviously we start in October, go until April, and a lot of, we understand that the times of the year that are maybe a little bit higher, or there's going to be more effort and, whether it's engagement and trying to get in front of people, as well as there are times of the year that are a little bit slower, where maybe you take more of that time to prepare and get ready, whether it's prospecting, whether it's setting up future meetings. But I think what's helped me the most, and this coincides with personal goals, is always writing it down and then breaking it up yourself in terms of how to get there. And I think that speaks better to personal goals, where, yes, I am one who at the start of the year, doesn't have to be like January 1 per se, but at the start of the year, I will always sit down and review goals that were accomplished or not accomplished last year, and what is most important in my life right now. And looking in that 3, 6, 9, 12-month window, I'll actually usually do this probably the end of January, early February, just because I like to maybe let the year sink in. And it doesn't mean I'll only have 11 months to do everything. I'll usually let that set of goals go until, January of the following year, if that makes sense. So the fiscal is a little bit, it's not start of the calendar. But with that being the case, I think from a personal perspective, the thing that influences me the most is having them written down, having them in a place that's easily accessible, and then having them factored out in terms of timeliness. And there's a lot to be said. You always want to accomplish big goals, whether it's promotions, whether it's financially, whether it's buying a house, getting married, things like that. But then you never really want to lose sight of daily goals. or even weekly goals, and having it broken down in my case, reading every day, meditating as often as I can, which if I'm doing it correctly is every day, exercising, going to the gym as often as you can, just getting the blood flowing, all those things really help set up, kind of that, I guess I'll call it just like that, the factory of your body,
Mhm.
and those kind of, and they can be different for everybody. It doesn't have to be like going to the gym and lifting 1,000 pounds. It could be going on a walk. But once you kind of start getting like those small little wins daily, that they absolutely add up. And then maybe you do like a bigger weekly project, and then those
Yep.
weekly projects add up. And then ultimately you've knocked out something that, over the course of 3, 4, 5, 6 weeks, one of those bigger projects that do take months at a time versus just putting it out there and, checking back on it at the end of the year and being like, oh, I didn't do that one.
No, understood. And something I'd love your take on, it is the beginning of the year, so people are excited. The gyms are as packed as they're going to be all year. People are staying up later, going to bed earlier, whatever the goal may be to change their current set of circumstances. But as we know, most New Year's resolutions die out by Valentine's Day. And
Mm-hmm.
I read a statistic at one point, something like over 95% are done by Easter. So thinking about bigger
Yeah.
goals,
Yeah.
thinking about those bigger goals, what works for you so that there isn't that lull in the middle? Like, how do you stay engaged? How do you coach people on staying engaged as well?
Yeah. I mean, those statistics do not surprise me at all. Biggest things I would speak to there is developing a routine that works for you. And in the last episode, I know I quoted some Hall of Fame speeches from NFL players, and there was one that came across, and I'm going to forget the player who said it, but it was stay committed with techniques and be consistent. So if you find techniques that you enjoy, that work for you, whether that means like how often you do it or what you are doing, I think just that consistency is key. But lo and behold, a lot of it factors down to how important the goal you are trying to set up for yourself is to your life. And I would say what people probably take on too much of is trying to do something gigantically different and new to what they're currently doing. And that usually ends up being in the result that it probably falls flat on its face, or that, that goal ends sooner than you would have envisioned. Where one of my favorite books that really steered me in the right direction, especially during COVID, was The Slight Edge. And
Okay.
I recommend that to anybody. And a big emphasis of the book is it's what a lot of people talk about nowadays, and it's been talked about previously, but just getting that 1% better every day at what you're doing. So I think that just focusing on the small wins allows you to keep those goals in mind. And let's say your goal is going to the gym, pretty easy example there. Things that probably don't work is like going to the gym for 2 hours a day,
Yeah.
every day until you're as fit as you humanly could be. Things that do work is maybe setting up a routine that is, it might be exercising every day. And if you want to put a time frame to it, do it. But obviously don't kick yourself if you don't accomplish the time frame. But if you don't put your time frame on it, those are the things in terms of like numbers of hours worked, like working out, not hours, like even minutes. And there's going to be days you wake up and you're like, man, I really don't feel like doing this thing that I told myself I would back in January. But back to the reference of the gym, if you just wake up and you're like, okay, I'm going to go to the gym or exercise for just 5 minutes right now, you can probably get yourself motivated to do it for a very short period of time. But the toughest thing to even do is get started. And then
Yeah.
once you get those, and I think the book even references like, tell yourself you're going to do it for 2 minutes. And then once you actually like, subconsciously overcome the hurdle of waking, whether it's waking up early, putting your shoes on, putting your clothes on, and then starting it. You're like, all right, I'm just gonna do this for 2 minutes. And once 2 minutes gets there, you're like, all right, I'm already here. I'm already ready to rock and roll. Let's make it happen. So a lot of people talk about making it smart, and I'm sure a lot of your audience knows exactly what that means. The biggest things that stand out to me with a SMART goal just has to do with, making it realistic.
Yeah. Can you elaborate on the realistic part and why that matters?
Yeah. So I'll just use the example I just did. If you are making a goal for yourself to go to the gym every day and you do put in maybe even an hour every day or 2 hours every day, that might not be realistic with your life. You have career, you might have school, you might have family, you obviously have travel, vacation, things like that. So, you know, making things like in a more realistic bucket that you could probably accomplish every day, such as, maybe doing a shorter concept to your goal. Like good examples there too are, if you want to read a certain number of books, break it down to the number of pages per day. If you want, if you want to eat healthier, you don't have to like completely raid your fridge and get everything out there, out of it and replace it with brand new food that you don't really like eating. It might work for like a week, but think in the future where from the food concept, it might just be even just like realistically changing one meal. And it could
Yeah.
even be changing one meal once a week. Start with that. Like, all right, I used to eat, I'm giving an example here, but instead of eating like bacon and eggs 5 days a week in the morning, maybe one of those days is oatmeal, or
Yeah.
something, or like a green juice. And then you kind of incorporate that. Maybe one of the weeks is a salad that it used to not be. And then you kind of build off of there. So those things are more realistic. And I think it also helps your brain form like around the fact that like you're not trying to overindulge and completely reshape who you are, because that your why is in that case is not big enough, and you're probably going to change what you're doing.
Yeah, and thank you for sharing that, Cooper. So just to piggyback off of that, what I'm hearing you say is that incremental gains on a bigger goal is more sustainable and more practical than just going cold turkey into something. And I think that this is actually really well reflected in the book Atomic Habits by James Clear, which I'm sure you're at least aware of. I'm sure most of the people listening to this are at least aware of. And he kind of gave the same example of he had a client who, instead of going to the gym for an hour a day, he just had him show up for 5 hours a day. Sorry, 5 minutes a day, just to get it ingrained, just to get the muscle memory, the habit formation of just showing up. And then it was 5 minutes plus one machine, and then 5 minutes plus two machines. And then over time, this guy became somebody who got really fit because he was going to the gym 90 minutes a day. And so that is something that I would encourage listeners here to adopt as well. Is you're going to feel the energy, you're going to feel the pressure to step all the way into the new goal, the new year, new me mentality, but real change is meant to be incremental. And the big results that we see people posting on Instagram or elsewhere, those are usually the result of lots and lots of work over time. It's not just flipping a switch and going from 0 to 100. And speaking of goals, like I would love to hear, what are your current goals for heading into the new year?
Yeah, absolutely. The biggest things that I know that I'm looking at from a personal perspective is my wife and I recently got married. So the next big goal for us combined is definitely going to be looking at the opportunity for a house. And that is top of mind. Obviously, you got to be smart about it and allow the marketplace to warrant it as well. But, we understand that that's a component of building a life together, having a family together and everything. And that definitely is goals of ours here in the future, starting a family and everything as well. And then I'd say for me personally too, is I like to put goals for things to train for. So whether it's like a race, like a half marathon, I don't know if I can knock out a full marathon. I don't mind. Maybe I'll walk one, but like a race that would entail like, some like challenges, like a little bit of a struggle to complete, and or even like a bike race, like a pretty long road. We've like a road bike race. We do that pretty often. Not the
Nice.
race aspect, but like riding bikes for exercise. So, but I do really enjoy the like and that's also too something that can like coincide with like, okay, I would like to accomplish let's say like a 30-mile bike race.
Mhm.
Road bike race, those are pretty standard, 20, 30 miles. Maybe takes like an hour and a half to complete. Like, okay, my goal is to accomplish this sometime during the year. It could be in 6 months, could be in 8 months, and whenever the bike race is set, and I'll focus my effort on that. Okay, then I can also coincide that same goal over here with like I might also have like a daily goal to exercise every day, and that is going to be my why I'm getting up and doing like, bike riding, running, exercise, going to the gym, weightlifting. It's like, okay, this is the routine I have, and it's helping me train for where I want to be,
Mhm.
in the end. So I do find joy in that, because yeah, sometimes motivating yourself consistently to go to like the same gym every day could, potentially get boring. But what the way you put it is solid. I know we love to travel, so I always like to put 2 to 4 destinations that we would like to go to in that year, whether whether it's things that we feel like we've had on our mind for a while, or even like maybe one semi-random place that we've never been. And that's what I've enjoyed living out in this part of the country. I am from Northern California, and now I find myself in Florida. There's a lot of new cities, cultures, travel to experience in a much closer proximity. So we've taken full advantage of doing that. And then I'd say like professionally, I mean, I absolutely am. I do keep in mind like where I want to be as in my career. And, they always say like, never factor in title or pay, but I do understand that I would like to be in the opportunity that, has probably more autonomy in terms of leadership and understanding of financially leading the direction of an organization. And those are things I aspire to. And with that being the case, that's the reason why I went back to school to get my MBA, to get that better understanding, that foundation. That's kind of both personal. It's a personal accomplishment to complete the MBA, but myself included, and virtually everybody there is doing it for career aspirations.
Sure.
Doesn't have to be, but more often than not, where and that, to kind of piggyback or even bring it backwards, I would say is like the MBA, going back to get my master's, was a goal, about 2 years ago. Even just like applying was a goal. So
Mhm.
you put it on there. That was like in 2021. You put it on there, you kind of see it every day, and there's just like everything else in life. You talk yourself into it, you talk yourself out of it. You give
Yeah,
yourself
yeah.
all the reasons it can go great. You probably give yourself more reasons why it's the worst idea you've ever heard of in your mind, where, you know, living proof that, I put it on there, I saw it every day. And one thing in terms of that I intentionally did, and this is something that I picked up just, whether it's through books, trainings, mentors, is I talked about it a lot. I put it out there. I was letting people know what my anticipation was, what my goal was, what I'm looking to do. So like, not only was I being intentional, I was being practical, because, it's that's attainable. Applying for anything is, anybody can do it, but like, who does do it and how serious are you? So I spent a lot of time talking to a lot of people about it, but the reason I did that was I was telling them I'm seriously thinking about going back to get my master's, my MBA. Most likely I'm going to do it at the closest university, which for me is University of Central Florida. And
Mhm.
here's the reasons why. And ultimately, like, you also like do that. You don't want to let people down. It's like you put it out there, you set it up, you tell them your reasons, have strong reasons, of course. And then like if you do it enough, there comes a time where you're like, like, I told all these people I was going to do it. I should
Yeah.
just go do it. I should do it. Like, why would I not do it? Like, what's going to go, So that wasn't the only reason, but I know like as opposed to like talking myself into it, not to like get everyone's feedback of like, oh yeah, like because a lot of people ask like, oh, why are you gonna do it? What are you gonna use it for? Where's it gonna get you? And like where it's gonna get me, I don't have that answer right now, but I know it's a 2-year program. From the time I started to the time I finished, 2 years later, I'll be in a better spot than I was.
Yeah.
No doubt about that. So, but the things that I think anybody could pick up on is if you have these big, lofty goals, let it be known, like almost like speak it into existence.
Mhm.
Let the universe hear it, let other people hear it. You don't know. I mean, it doesn't have to be going back to school. It could be starting your own business. And you talk about it, you put it out there, don't keep it in. If it's that important to you, put it out there. We talked about this on the last time. Somebody might come out of left field and be like, I have a resource for you that can help make that happen.
Yeah.
It could be cash, could be finances, could be a location, it could be a business partner, could be an idea you didn't think of that can help with your idea. There's a lot of power to that.
Yeah, 100%. And to speak into that directly, I ran my first half marathon in 2023, and I
Yeah.
told just about everybody that I was going to do
Mhm.
it. And
Mhm.
as we got closer and closer, I had random people texting me like, "Hey, do you think you're ready?" Like not from a place of wishing ill on me or saying I couldn't do it, but like genuinely wanting me to succeed. Like, "Hey, we've
Yeah.
been following your progress on social media because you've been posting about it. Like,
Mhm.
are you ready to go? Can we help? What's your hydration plan like?" And
Yeah.
not only did I get to receive that support, but to your point earlier of applying to schools, it actually developed this kind of internal need to not let these people down because they were
Mhm.
expecting me to follow through. And maybe they were living vicariously through me
Totally.
to some extent, but it helped me motivate myself because I don't want to run 8 miles on a day when it's 40 degrees outside necessarily, but I do want the end result
Even if
more
it's
than I
75 degrees. Yeah.
yeah. I want that end result more than I want to give into my circumstances.
As you put it out there, you probably came across more people who have done it that you probably didn't think about or know about, and they probably had some fantastic advice on what to do to get ready for it. That maybe
Yeah.
maybe you thought about it, maybe you didn't, but even if you already thought about it and they told you, you're like, okay, I was thinking about the right thing. I was going down the right track. I was fishing in the right pond of like, okay, like you said, hydration, schedule, run patterns, run routine, when to be on your feet, when to not be on your feet. And you're like, oh, I put it out there. I didn't know like she runs marathons and she, and her advice is actually pretty solid. I didn't know that about her. And one thing I would say to anybody who's listening or and whatnot, especially when it comes to goals, and if you're thinking big picture, take it with a grain of salt. But I would say there's a lot of value in listening to people who have actually done it before,
Hmm.
and the opposite is true, where only take as much advice from people who, limit the advice from the people who haven't done it before, and those are kind of important things I would say to anybody, whether it's career decisions, goals that you're trying to attain personally. There's a lot of value from hearing from the people who have been down that path, but also allow their voice to be a bigger influence than somebody who hasn't and is just giving you their opinion.
Yeah, I mean, I to your point exactly. I can't tell you how many people are like, "Oh, why do you want to run 13 miles?" Or
Mm-hmm.
like, "Ew, I don't even want to run 1 mile." And that's fine. Like they can be perfectly happy doing their thing over there, but I'm over here pursuing my goals and my dreams, and I'm intentionally surrounding myself with the people who are going to lift me up and help get me over the finish line. No
Mm-hmm.
pun intended.
Yeah,
And
and for those who probably don't have time today, but in the last podcast we talked a lot about mentorship, and it was surrounding yourself with people, who are like minded, who try to accomplish the same thing. So that would coincide perfect with this.
yeah, absolutely. So definitely go back and check out that episode as well. We definitely go into that at pretty good detail. But similar, Cooper, I wanted to ask you this because it is related. You're somebody that has invested a lot in your own personal development, as have I. I would truly not be the person I am sitting here interviewing you today had I not. And, I think the proof is that we are vastly different people than who were in the business school together at University of Oregon. What has been the value that you've seen specifically in investing in yourself and your personal development? And what advice would you give to people for finding similar opportunities?
Yeah, absolutely. And to put it in context, what Stu was talking about is especially like in 2020, and like starting in 2020, I should say, invested a lot in the Tony Robbins programs. And outside of really listening to him on like YouTube or the things that would pop up, I did not know much about. And the first experience of it, I should say, is we went to a live event prior to COVID when they were a little more of a thing down in Miami. It's called Unleash the Power Within, UPW. I was there with my now wife. And the number one thing, whether you believe it, don't believe it, hate it, love it, all good, is there is a component. So it was at the Miami Heat Arena, holds about 18,000 people. So let's just say you're in that 20,000 person range. There is something to be said about that massive amount of people all in the same room with positive energy, looking to better their lives, setting up their own goals and accomplishments. And everyone there is there for different reasons, whether it's starting your own business, whether it's just trying to like be a better husband, better wife. Like a lot of people there are trying to get, more fit and shape, and the people there are trying to accomplish massive goals. There's very few places that like that kind of ecosystem exists for any period of time, especially with that massive number of people. Like when you walk into work, there's definitely a large percentage of people there who might not want to be there that day, or by the time they go home, or like when the work is over, it's like clock out, done, nothing else, which is perfectly fine. I definitely enjoy that component of, maybe it's like shared experiences, but also the conversations about like how people are trying to better themselves. So I did do a lot of that the last couple of years. I have switched focuses. I had a coach and, switched focuses in terms of where I spend my time. But more recently, last year, we went to a Brendon Burchard Growth Day conference, which was in Austin, which, a lot of similar things are said. So the reason I say that is like, you can kind of, if you're looking for this type of environment, or if you're looking for this type of experience, or surrounding yourself with just like positive mindset, intentions, attitudes, they do exist. And, not all of them are going to be for everybody, whether it's a type of speakers, whether it's a type of exercises, workbooks, things like that. But for me, my biggest takeaways from it were during all the programming, they know what they're doing. But what I was gonna say is they do give you a lot of exercises and workbooks that, nobody's gonna knock you for not doing them, and nobody's gonna applaud you for doing them. But they're all about how much do you care to do it for yourself, to know where you're going, to build your own roadmap. In Tony Robbins, there's a couple of different conferences that I attended, whether it's Date with Destiny, Health Mastery, Life Mastery, Wealth Mastery, things like that, where being intentional was my biggest takeaway. And you go through these books, like these workbooks, and yes, it's a lot of work, and yes, it takes time, and yes, you're not gonna, you can't just close a computer and be like, or leave the conference and be like, all right, am I better now? Never gonna be the case. But the fact that you sit down, you spend the time to think about like what your past has been. You spend the time to think about what you want your future to look like. You break down what you're currently doing now. What do you want to continue doing? What do you want to stop doing? Where should you be looking to, where else should you be looking? Where can you get those resources? And like, you kind of build this own little game plan roadmap that like literally nobody's going to do it for you ever.
Hmm.
Nobody
Hmm.
ever is. And
Preach.
if they did, you wouldn't like it.
Hmm.
Like if somebody said, "Hey, Stu, like, you're gonna do these podcasts, and here's how you're gonna be, the next $100 million podcaster, and like here's the plan to do it," you'd be like, like what? Like why are we doing this every day? And like blah blah blah. It's like you got to build your own, but also only what works for you. What doesn't work for you. It's realistic. Things that you can change. You definitely know things that you should be getting rid of. Whether that's people, whether that's things you eat, things you drink, the career you have right now, the career you want to have. So that has been very impactful. And then the next thing I'll couple that with is the consistency. And that's where a lot of the coaching came into play, where, when you do have it set up, maybe it's once a month, maybe it's 2 times a month, 3 times a month, like you name it, where those type of things, those aspirations are so easy to not think about that like 6 months goes by and you're like,
Yeah.
okay, that's now next year's goal. And then that becomes, 5 years later, 10 years later. And I'm sure anybody listening has plenty of examples of that. Maybe not to that extreme of the time frame, but when you whether you have the coaching or you have those events on the calendar in place consistently, not only things to look forward to, but they're also things that you have to be prepared going into them. And then when you coaching, for example, a lot of it would have to do with setting up yourself for like the next week, and
Hmm.
you make yourself accountable, and holding yourself accountable, because again, just
Yes.
any of those events, if you took the packet and threw it away, nobody cares. If you took the packet and filled it out from first line to finish, nobody cares. But like, do you care? Like,
Yeah.
do you care at all? And that's just the question you need to ask yourself. And if you don't, you know and hopefully if you do, then those are the reasons to take the next steps. And if you don't, then things like that are probably not for you, and you
Yeah.
figure it out any which way you want. Probably the most repeated phrase I take away from Tony Robbins is where focus goes, energy flows. So like
Yep.
really, it's like whatever you're thinking about, it's gonna happen, it's gonna come true. But like, do your best to make sure that those are like positive. Those are goals.
Yes.
Those are things that are going to accomplish where you want to be in life. Try to the negative thoughts, feelings. Everybody has them. You kind of got to wake up every day and like whether it's spiritually, whether it's just foundationally, telling yourself that today's going to be a great day. For whatever happens, tomorrow's a new day. If that day wasn't that great, and literally, if it takes a reminder every day to get your energy flowing in the right direction, your focus is going to bring you to the things you want in life.
Beautiful, man. Beautifully stated. And you hit on so many important things in that response that I could spend another hour picking apart all of the stuff that you said. But just to summarize it for the folks, like everything you said, I'm an amen to. What I've heard Cooper say, y'all, is kind of a double-sided coin. It's go out there, get the support, get the coaching, go to the events to pump you up, meet the people, network your butt off. But at the end of the day, it's still on you to do the work. And I've definitely, as a coach myself, been in situations where folks have hired me, and it's pretty quickly been obvious that they kind of expecting me to just do the work for them, and I'm going to wave some type of magic wand and their life is going to get better. That's unfortunately not how it's going to work. And I think you said it super well. If I could do that for people, if Tony Robbins could do that for people, if the book you read could do that for you, you probably wouldn't be super happy with the outcome, because you're then outsourcing being the author of your own life to somebody else. So I really appreciate you hitting on that. And with that said, y'all, like we said this in the last episode Cooper was on, like nothing great was accomplished alone. So whether it's getting your friends together for an accountability group or hiring a coach or attending an event, you only get one shot at this life. So you owe it to yourself to maximize your potential if you have goals and dreams and aspirations. Is there any other thoughts you have on that, Cooper, before we start to wind this down?
For those who are thinking about it, I mean, obviously Stu is a fantastic resource, and even just bouncing off ideas and understanding, trust me, and I'll be a personal example to it, is like, it's a leap of faith. You don't really need to know like the end result for what that, if you choose that direction, you're choosing it for the right reasons. And funny enough, what Stu said, when I did get set up with the coach and everything, that was absolutely my mindset going into it, being like, and like, it's almost thinking of it more as like a therapist, being like, here's like some life goals I want to accomplish and change. And like, you tell me exactly what I should do next step. And when it became pretty obvious, or pretty clear, I should say, is that that the answers weren't just going to be given. And he probably didn't even have answers for most of what I was talking about, but that's not his job. It wasn't, like if he had the answers to that, he'd probably be in a different profession. But a lot of what it had to do was he would ask, questions I wasn't thinking about, maybe reframing my thought process. Like if I was talking about somewhere I was struggling, and like maybe really upset with, is this an outside influence that can help you see it as an opportunity, where you can improve upon, and things that I could do differently, where, yeah, totally. I thought I was going to show up, get coaching, and he was going to help me reach my sales goals. And this guy, that like, he doesn't really know the product. He doesn't really know the marketplace. That was like the wrong way to go into it. But coming after sticking, I didn't drop it cold turkey. After sticking with it, you're like, okay, here's what I have done with this. Like a lot of the routines I just told you about were picked up through that consistency with the conversations. You get real intentional with like, your coach isn't going to make up your yearly goals for you, so you make them up, and they help you stay accountable to reaching those, that the ways you think are possible.
Yeah. Yeah. Eloquently said. And, just to double down, coaching is not therapy, y'all, but it is effective. My job as a coach, just to put it succinctly, is to take you in real time and move you forward on your goals and dreams. Right. I have been in therapy in different seasons of my life. Therapy is a wonderful, wonderful thing. If you have any past hurts and traumas or anything that gets to be unpacked and healed, please go do that. There are many apps out there that can connect you to people relatively inexpensively now who have that training. But coaching is for people that, like Cooper said, have their goals, have their dreams, maybe just need an outside perspective to help them look at what's maybe is and is not working so that they can 10x themselves. They can hit those goals and make them a certainty.
And a lot of people talk about like investing in yourself. Like investing usually means, no more air quotes, usually means like, physically paying for something. Clearly it's investing in yourself. Doesn't mean you sit and read a book all the time. That's a component to it, but like, you may need to pay for a coach or pay for a seminar, and it might cost more money than you think, or maybe it doesn't, maybe it's affordable, who cares? But it's like, this is investing in yourself for an end result that's different than what you're currently doing by yourself.
Beautiful. And again, y'all, I wish we had more time. I think we're going to need to wrap this up here. I know that you got value from today's episode. So, as always, please please subscribe. Please, again, share this out with somebody if you got value, which, again, I know you did. Cooper is very, very giving of his time. He is on LinkedIn. We will make sure that we connect his info below in the notes so you can connect with him, continue the conversation offline as well. And Cooper, as always, as we head out, I want to ask you, what are you acknowledging yourself for today?
Yeah, great question and everything. For this one, I'm going to say that I'm acknowledging my tenacity, I'm going to call it, and persistence to pursue these dreams and goals. And I'm thinking specifically for the MBA program that I'm in. You know, it takes time. It's a lot of effort. It's not easy. It's definitely hard. But knowing that, you know, I'm going to acknowledge the fact that I'm here. I'm doing that for a reason, and I'm looking very forward to what that end result brings when it's done.
Amen, man. Thank you so much for sharing, and thank you for being here again today.
Absolutely. Thank you for the invite again. Look forward to it.